Okay, we are live now. We are glad to see you all participants of career workshop. Today we will listen to a training session by Dr. Svend Wilhelm.
Okay,
we are live now. We are glad to... Okay, I turned my microphone. Dr. Svend Wilhelm, he is a trainer and consultant and lecturer and co-managing director of Horst Rogusha Foundation. We encourage our listeners to be active and ask questions in the comments below this video so that you can get the most out of this training. And so, Sven, I give you the microphone.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction. I'm very glad to be here. I was asked to talk about the very interesting topic, communication, and what are the most important things to consider when to communicate in a good way in a private, but also in a professional context. This is what I want to share today in our training. First of all, I'm really sorry that we started a little bit late, but I had some internet connection problems, but now hopefully it's working. I was asked to do this training today in English. If you should have any questions, I have planned to have a Q&A session at the end of this training. So please put in your questions in the chat, and then we can talk about the things and the topics later. Okay, welcome. As already said, I'm the co-managing director of the Horsta Rogusha Foundation. We are a foundation that is working a lot in the Ukraine, also supporting a lot of projects and activities. Our main goal is to support entrepreneurship. And that's also my lifetime purpose topic, because I'm also an entrepreneur. And today, apart from some theoretical input I will give you on communication and how to provide good feedback, for example, and what active listening is, I will also share some thoughts from my own practical experience when it comes to good communication and how you, for example, lead a good talk with one of your employees. Okay, then let's start. I have 3 parts prepared. The first one is I will give you a little bit of introduction to communication theory, and what theory or the theory of communication is all about. I mean, there are a lot of things here, but I want to focus on 1 or 2 approaches, which I find very useful. Then in the second part, I will elaborate a little bit about what active listening is. For me, this is one of the key skills in today's time, not just speaking, but also listening in a very good way. And then I will elaborate a little bit about the challenge of effective communication. And in the third part, we will discuss the topic how to provide good and meaningful feedback in conversations. So, and in the end, as already mentioned, we will have time for Q&A. Okay, so let's go into the deep dive now. So what is communication from a theoretical point of view? So actually, communication theory is the study of how information is exchanged, interpreted, and understood. So actually, when 2 people are talking to each other, in the end, they are exchanging different information. Can be personal information, can be business information, whatever. And the interesting part about communication is that we as human beings have got different mechanisms how to decode and encode these messages we receive from others. And that is a very important factor to recognize. How we encode and decode messages highly depends on our, for example, social and cultural background. So, and this is also one of the main reasons why sometimes, if these cultural differences are very high, the degree of information exchange and how we communicate to each other gets a little bit more complicated. Yeah. In the end, these different theories about communication are more or less descriptive tools to understand how we as human beings get in touch with each other and communicate with each other. Nevertheless, I find it very interesting to at least understand one or two of these communication theories, because in the end, they also give the basis for understanding where, for example, conflicts are coming from, and where the communication at what kinds of elements can be improved. Okay. In the end, there are different communication settings at work. I mean, everybody of us knows this. There's one-to-one communication, meaning we are communicating just with one other person. This can be orally, by speech. This can be also in written form through an email, for example. So this is, I would say, the most common way how we communicate to each other, this one-on-one communication. Then there's group communication, meaning different people in one group are communicating with each other, and there are different streams of communication. I'm talking to person one, I'm talking to person two, person one is talking to person two, so this is a little bit more complex communication setting. The other setting then is the third one here in this graph. I, as a person speaking to a group of people. This is, for example, the case when I do a speech. Yeah, I have an auditorium. There are 50 people sitting there. I'm on the podium and I'm speaking. So this is traditionally a one-to-many communication setting. And the last one is communication through technology. This is normally, for example, in our case here, we do the training today via Zoom, and I use technology to reach you in another country, in the Ukraine, and in the end, it's also one-to-many communication setting. And interestingly, if you look at communication theory, there are different rules and methods how to improve each of these different communication settings. Yeah, and because it's for us the most common one, I want to focus a little bit more on this one-on-one communication. So in the end, when it comes to the basic framework of communication theory, this here is the overall understanding how communication is unfolding. And I'm presenting this to you because this also gives some kind of very important basis for the other topics we will deal with today, especially when understanding how I can improve things like giving feedback, yeah, or also active listening. So in the end, it's always about a sender and a receiver. You see this here on this chart. So the sender gives a message through a channel. Normally it's voice, yes? So when you talk, you're sending a message through the voice. Channel is your voice, or language is your channel. And the receiver, on the other hand, then decodes this message. What does decoding mean? The receiver receives the message and then also interprets what does this message mean. And then, in best case, the receiver takes this decoded information and gives a feedback, a message back to the sender. Encodes again this message, and the sender needs to decode it. Interestingly, normally there's in the middle, when we exchange information through communication, there's always something that is called noise. Yeah, that's also here in the middle in the green box. What does noise mean? Noise is all the environmental or impact that we are having when we are communicating to each other. For example, two of us are standing at a bus stop in the city, yeah, and we are talking to each other. There's a lot of noise around, right? So cars are passing by, bus, it's very loud. Through this noise, there's sometimes then the risk that some parts of the message that I receive as a receiver is not fully understood, for example. Yeah. Noise can also be technology. I mean, as I said at the beginning of today's training, I had problems with my internet. Yes. So, and this is also noise, yeah, because I'm not able to communicate in the right way to you because I have a bad internet connection, right? So, and interestingly, in most settings, we are communicating to each other. There's some kind of noise involved, yeah. And the higher the noise is, the higher is then the probability that some parts of the message I'm sending out or the feedback I receive is not fully understood. And this is then the reason or the basis for example, misunderstandings or conflicts or also yeah, interpreting things. So if you look at the sender and the receiver as two human beings, for example, as I said before, this way of encoding and decoding messages highly depends on the social and cultural background of that person. So someone in the Ukraine, for example, may understand messages differently from somebody who is here in Germany, also sending out different messages. And this is always something we have to keep in mind, yeah. Also, when we talk to other people in a professional context, the experience, the personality of the person I'm talking to, for example, when I'm in a leadership setting, yeah, and I'm talking to an employee, this kind of social and cultural and also professional background plays a big role. And in best case, if I'm a good leader, I'm able to somehow modulate and my communication style depending on who is on the other side and whom I'm talking to. Yeah. So please keep this in mind. This is, I think, a very important thing. Maybe one of the big, and then it should be also enough for the introduction. Maybe one of the most famous scientists that has been dealing with communication theory is Paul Watzlawick. Maybe of you some have already heard about him. Actually, he was one of the first ones that really, from a theoretical point of view, was thinking about communication and how humans are communicating to each other. And he formed a theory that is actually based on 5 so-called axioms. Axioms are nothing more than principles. You can also say principles. And these 5 principles are very interesting if you think a little bit more deeper about this. So the first one is you cannot not communicate, as all behavior is a message. So this implies that not just the spoken language is communication, but also how you behave, how you, for example, move with your hands and your legs and your arms. So actually, all these other communication styles also transporting information to someone who is the receiver, yeah, to whom you're talking to. Second one is every communication has a content and a relationship level, with the relationship level classifying the content. What does that mean? Apart from the rational level of exchanging information, there's always a level of personal relationship to the person I'm talking to. So there's also this kind of information exchange. For example, if I'm a leader in a company, yeah, I'm a team leader, for example, and I'm talking to one of my team members, the relationship is always he's the one who needs to follow my decisions, yeah, because I'm the team leader. This is a relationship level, apart from the fact that maybe I want to talk about a totally different topic with that person. This relationship level always is there, and actually it's always there, independently from with whom you are talking. In family, it's there. In a professional context, it's there. When you talk to friends, it's there. So it's apart from this formal information exchange level, there's also always this relationship level. Third axiom, third principle of Václavic is communication is punctuated into cause and effect sequences, which can be interpreted differently. This is what I've already shown you before in this sender-receiver model. So when we communicate and send out a message, we get feedback back of this message, and it's a back and forth. And the most important thing is, how does the other person I'm communicating to interpreting the kind of information I'm giving? Yeah, and this can be totally different, yeah, due to social background, cultural background, also economical background, yeah, and it's always important to keep that in mind. So the fourth principle is humans communicate both digitally, words, and analogically, non-verbal cues like tone and body language. This is connected to the second principle I've been already talking about. So it's not just about exchanging language or words, it's always also about non-verbal communication. That's the reason why, for example, if you want to be a great speaker, so filling auditoriums with 1,000 participants, the main thing you need to work in is not the language or the message you're sending. It's your body language. It's how you act on stage, how you really are present on the stage. And this is very important, and in certain communication settings, even more important than the spoken word that you are sending out. Yeah, so this nonverbal communication skills are also very important. The last axiom is that all communication interactions are either symmetrical or complementary. What does that mean? Symmetrical communication is when you communicate with someone on the same level. So in German, you would say it's communication under equals, right? So there's no difference in power or in your role. But for example, if you talk to a friend, it's symmetrical communication based on equality. Or the other thing is it's complementary communication. This is more based on difference of the different persons that are involved. For example, in this team leader, team member communication setting, this is not equal. It's more like I'm the one who's can take decisions and the other one has to follow. This is a different communication style. And with these 5 axioms, Václavic has somehow formed the basis for a lot of other theories. And I think the most important thing he was mentioning is the fact that it's not just about formal exchange of information. It's also about all these nonverbal communication aspects that also play a very important role when we talk to others, right? So he was the first one, or one of the first ones, who was talking about this, writing that down. and putting that together in his theory. Good. I mean, interestingly, these communications theories, if you think a little bit more about the different topics involved, they form somehow a basis for also understanding better why daily communication sometimes is failing, right? So, and everybody of us knows this, yeah? We are talking to someone, maybe in family, and then out of a sudden a conflict is arising, yeah? And actually you don't know why, or often it's really depending on the different schemes of encoding and decoding messages, and maybe somebody has other values than you, and then the likelihood that this person is understanding things differently compared to you is quite high. And yeah, that was also the reason why I was showing you this basic framework at the beginning. But now in the second part, we will more talk about two other topics. One is, which I find very, very important, this skill of active listening. Yeah, what does it actually mean? And why is it so important? And then the challenge of effective communication. So how can we really structure good communication, especially in a professional context, just to really avoid these misunderstandings that I have been already talking about. Okay. Good. So active listening. If we remember what I've shown you in this basic communication framework with the sender and the receiver, one of the big challenges is to receive the message in a good way that I'm receiving. Yeah. So, and for that, it's highly important because normally language is the major channel of how we communicate. Active listening is really the most important communication still. Because what does it mean? Active listening is the communication skill that involves fully concentrating on understanding and then responding to a speaker. So, and especially in today's time with social media and all these other entertainment channels we are using, the skill of really listening to somebody and be in the moment, yeah? So this moment of undivided attention, really looking somebody into his or her eyes, listening also to the verbal communication, but also the non-verbal communication is, I think, extremely important, because understanding the message in the right way and understanding what the other person really meant is then the basis that I can think about, okay, what is now my response on this? And from my personal experience, this listening to somebody, really maybe being quiet or saying nothing for a few minutes, is something we as humans are, at least it's not so important anymore, or we are not really used to do this, because we are in our daily lives with, as I said, social media or mobile phone, and so we are always triggered to react very fast. Yeah. But from a communication standpoint, this is not always the right way. Sometimes, especially when we talk one-to-one with somebody, also in a professional context, it's much smarter to listen in the first place. Also pose questions. I will come to this. Yeah, how you can be a really good active listener. Yeah, for me, this is one of the key skills, especially for potential leadership roles, that you should have. You need to listen. Speaking, yes, you also need to speak and communicate actively. But first of all, listening to what other people tell you, understand this, and give this undivided attention is very important. Because in the end, this active listening, this is also, I think everybody of you knows from personal experience. For example, if you're sitting in a cafe with a friend, yeah, and you are talking to that person, and you within minutes, you definitely know whether this person is now together with you in that moment, or maybe this person is thinking about other things. And what does it make with us as human beings? When I recognize that somebody is not really fully with his or her intention with me in that moment, I'm also losing some kind of motivation to really continue that conversation, because for me it doesn't make sense, because I have the feeling that I'm talking to somebody, but he or she is not really understanding and responding to that. So in the end, you are not able to build up trust. It does not strengthen your relationship with that person. And it doesn't matter whether it's private relationship or a professional relationship, doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't build trust and it does not strengthen the relationship. And maybe you have experienced this on your own already in your own life. At least for me, it's the case. Friends that are not really active listening to you and are able to lead meaningful conversations, at a certain point of time, they are not your friends anymore. Because for you, you think it's not worthwhile to talk to these kinds of people. And that's the reason here. Yeah, in the end, if we as human beings don't have the impression that somebody is really with us in the moment and listening, active, and trying to understand me, this is, that's the reason why then maybe this kind of relationship then is dissolved at a certain point of time, and a friend is not a friend anymore. Can be. And so in the end, this active listening, it builds trust and strengthens relationship. It improves understanding for the other person. And then in professional setting, it really boosts productivity, and it also helps to resolve conflicts. Yeah. So, and what does it mean to be a good active listener? I think it's quite well described here on this chart. Yeah. So actually there are some key things. So the first one is, if you are hearing a message or somebody's talking to you, then at a certain point of time, it's very important to also paraphrase what you have heard. Yeah. So that's on the top left part in this, in the yellow symbol. So try to paraphrase and describe with your own words at a certain point of time what the person has told you in the last 2-3 minutes. This is a very good way to, on the one hand, to signal, okay, I'm with you, I'm really understanding, and also the second thing is you are able to clarify the message and also detect potential misunderstandings when you, in your own words, paraphrase what you have just heard. Asking questions is very important. So when somebody's talking to you, maybe has a problem, then ask questions. Encourage, not only here it says student, but it can be any other person. And ask questions, especially about feelings, about the thoughts. How have you felt in that specific situation? Also use positive body language, yeah? Nodding, looking in the eye, as I said before, really facing the other person, giving the person a good comfort space that they are able to open up, yeah? Very important. Show empathy. Empathy is also very important. What does empathy mean? It means, in the first step, take all the emotions and everything and show some kind of understanding for that. Yeah. Maybe on a rational level, it's the solution is different. Yeah. But if you are listening to somebody, really consider why they feel this way. Try to put yourself into the other person's shoes and try to understand what they are feeling and why they are talking that way to you. Avoid judgments, also important. So if you hear something, we are, as humans, we are tending to really judge very fast. Yeah. So I'm listening to somebody after 20 seconds. Okay, he or she is an idiot, or he's a good. But really be open and avoid judgment. Judgment can be later, and judgment needs to be, but not after you are listening to someone after 20 seconds. It's much too early. Yeah, and it's also not a good way, because you for yourself, you are not really allowing yourself to learn and grow. Yeah, if you're always judging very fast. Yeah. Don't give advice too quickly. So, and advice you should always give only if the person asks you for advice. This is also, I think, very important. We also tend to always give our advice to every topic we are hearing. Yeah. But sometimes the person just wants to speak. They don't want to hear advice. They just want to have somebody who is empathetic, who is listening. And maybe it's not about advice. Yeah. So I would always recommend let the people speak, and then when they ask you for your opinion, then you can give advice or your opinion, but not if it's not asked for. And then in the end, it's about, for sure, then also evaluating the conversation, and maybe take some time, maybe say, okay, I need to think about this, need 1 minute, and then you talk, but really evaluating what you have heard, I think is also very important. And yeah, sometimes it's also about fixing a problem. This is the last thing here in the green symbol. But as I said before, sometimes it's not about fixing a problem. It's just about listening. Yeah, and try this out. It's also sometimes a little bit uncomfortable to do this, just to be the listener. But sometimes that's exactly what the other person needs and wants. Yeah, and I think in communication, this is a very, very important thing to consider. Good. So taking this in mind, then the question is, okay, what is then good communication? Yeah, and on a formal level, it's the first bullet point here. In the end, it's about the ability to exchange information clearly and efficiently, so that the message that I'm sending out is understood as the sender intended it, which is me in that case. Yeah. So in the end, it involves then both speaking and listening. Yeah. So we are now talking about oral communication and not writing. Also, this is another thing. So it's about speaking and listening and understanding the emotions and intentions behind the message. Yeah. This is the level that Václavic has described. This is often this relationship level. It's not about exchanging the information. Yeah. I want to say A, and the receiver understands A. It's always also about emotions and intentions. And you know this, yeah. If I'll just give you an example. If you're talking to a friend, yeah, and that person is telling you, oh, I'm feeling so lonely, and I'm ill, and I really need yeah, I need somebody who's taking care of me, yeah, or whatever. So maybe that's the message. Then you would react, okay, then talk to your doctor or whatever. Maybe that's your advice you're giving. But I think the intention and the emotion may be from the other person, okay, please spend more time with me. See me more often. That person is not speaking this out loudly, but because really paraphrasing this kind of topic, the real emotion and intention is you need to spend more time for me. I need you. Yeah. Maybe that's then the message. And it's not the message, oh, I'm ill or whatever. Yeah. So, and these are the different kinds of communication levels you always need to consider. So to receive then good communication, it's about some key principles, or here it says key characteristics. In the end, it's about clarity. Clear communication means you need to have, when you communicate, main ideas that are easy to identify and understand. Yeah? We all know people that are communicating in a very complex way. Yeah, and this is not helpful. I mean, this is something you can use if you want to irritate somebody, but it's not good if you really want to understand, especially in leadership settings, understand what your employee needs to understand. Then you need to be clear. Clarity is very important. This is also connected to conciseness. So the message needs to be direct and really needs to avoid unnecessary words. So just paraphrasing things, yeah, sometimes it helps, but in the end, it's about that the message is clear and directly said, right? So active listening, as I said before, if you're the receiver, pay full attention to the speaker and make sure that they feel heard and understood. Empathy in this context is also important. I think something that's really we as humans are losing a little bit, yeah, being empathetic with others. So really trying to understand the other person's feelings and perspective. Because being empathetic with somebody is then the basis for really, especially in conflicts, really finding a good compromise, right? So yeah, I think our modern world is a little bit missing this. Yeah, this is this is really sad to see, but I think that's reality. Also connected to respect, be respectful with each other, be polite, considerate in both verbal and non-verbal interactions. Even in conflicts, this is possible. Yeah, and be accurate. That the information that you want to send out is correct and presented in a logical way, and also be aware of this non-verbal communication levels. Yeah, paying attention to body language and other non-verbal cues. I mean, one of the most famous examples is maybe you have also witnessed this. If somebody's talking to you about, oh, I'm feeling so happy and I'm so good and I have my life is so perfect, and that person is sitting like this in front of you, crossing the arms, then something is wrong. This is not the body language you should give to somebody if you're really happy and open to everything. This is a clear sign that I'm not open. Yeah. And when I, for example, leading job interviews with candidates, I'm always looking at body language also. Yeah, if somebody's crossing his legs or her legs on a chair, or crossing the arms as I've shown you, or doing this, or skipping the head a little bit, or whatever. So it's all signs that you can observe, and whether the body language also fits the communication. And funnily, there are some situations where this is not meeting. So the formal communication is not fitting to the body language, especially when somebody feels uncomfortable, is stressed, or when there are strong emotions involved, right? So sometimes then we pretend to say something, but actually we are not feeling it. Yeah. And body language is something we are not able to control very easily. Yeah. I mean, you can learn this, and great speakers, they are able to control their body language in a very good and efficient way. It's more easy to control your oral communication. So the level of what you are communicating and how you do this is more easy to learn than body language. But great speakers can combine both. Yeah, this is, I think, also something. For that reason, for example, playing theater is a great thing. Yeah, maybe some of you are doing this as a hobby, but if you are on stage playing a theater, playing a role, then also great actors have great body language, because it fits to what they are talking, and the body language 100% fits into this. You are able to learn this, but it's a hard process. Yeah, it's not so easy to do this. Good. If you break it down to 3 principles of good communication, then it's about these 3 things, I would say. Yeah, it's about empathy. So this is what I've just said. Yeah, understanding the feelings and thoughts and needs of the other person that I'm talking to. It's assertiveness, sharing your feelings and needs openly and in a tactful way. So it's not just about being empathetic, but also be open to communicate these kinds of things also to the other person. And inquiry, meaning asking gentle and good questions to find out more about the other person's feelings, yeah, thoughts and needs. And that's an interesting thing. This personal relationship, apart from this information relationship I was talking about, I think if you consider this a little bit more in your own communication to whomever, it will lead you to better outcomes, will make communication much more effective if you have this here in mind. We tend to just to focus on exchange and data and information exchange, but in the end, normally 2 humans are communicating to each other, and it's always this personal and relationship level involved. And to have that in mind and to focus on this makes a lot of sense, because then communication can be really effective. So when you're in a leadership setting, you are, for example, leading a team in a company. I mean, this is derived of what I have said before, but actually for me, if I would say what's personally most important if you are a good leader, then for me, it's these listening skills for sure. You are able to communicate in a concise way. So you're very precise with what you're saying. You're sending out clear messages. Yeah, this is very important. And you have got a very good nonverbal communication, means what you are saying verbally is also highly supported by how your body language, your tone, your voice, your habitus is acting. So this is very much connected to each other. Then you are able to also convince others. And I think that's very important. And sometimes you will also see people that maybe are team leaders that lack a little bit this this good combination of nonverbal and verbal communication skills. My experience is these kind of people are then not really able to convince others. Yeah, because their kind of communication is too weak in a sense. Yeah. So so for in leadership settings, it's even more important to have these kinds of things on topics in mind. Also, when you talk to your colleagues in a workplace, yeah. It's the same thing. Yeah, clear expectations, feedback, clarify what you're saying, asking for clarification if things are not clear. Be clear and active, listener, avoid assumptions. Oh, this, by the way, is a very important thing also. Avoid assumptions. I mean, everybody of us has somehow also his own beliefs and values and assumptions about how the world is going. And yeah, sure. I mean, that's why we are humans. This is integral part of our personalities. But this really doesn't help if you want to communicate openly to someone, yeah? So try to really avoid assumptions about somebody, yeah, or about what the topic might be. Listen first, then evaluate this, what you've just heard, and then draw your conclusions, yeah? Absolute fine, yeah? But don't go into a meeting or in a talk with somebody and say, okay, it doesn't make sense anyway, yeah? So this as an assumption, this is not good. I mean, then don't do this at all, yeah? So active listening, then think about it, what you heard, and then draw conclusions. I think that's the way how to do it. Good. Final part. Just want to highlight a little bit what a good feedback is, because I was asked to elaborate a little bit about this topic too. So the question is, how can I provide good and meaningful feedback? Yeah, I mean, about a lot of things we've already talked, but maybe specifically, what is good feedback and how can I provide it? In the end, if you are talking about a company or a workspace, I think the ultimate goal is somehow to create some call it feedback culture or an open communication culture. But in the end, this kind of feedback culture is the basis that people talk in a good way to each other and are able to continue to learn, grow, and challenge themselves. What does feedback culture mean? It means that everybody, and also I'm also talking about the leaders, yes, but not just about the employees, but also about the managing directors, team leaders. Everybody should be open to receive feedback from somebody else in different settings. Because actually feedback is something that can give you a very valuable insight into where you have still areas for development, yeah, and to getting better and to learn and to grow. If you are a person that says, "Oh no, it doesn't matter for me. I don't want to have feedback. I know everything already." That's the beginning of the end, yeah. But in our modern times, with all these changes currently on AI, for example, yeah, and all these different business models that are currently being created, it would be really idiotic to say, I don't need feedback, and in the end, I don't want to learn and grow. It needs to be the opposite. I think you can learn something from everybody, and everybody should also give you feedback. I don't mean that it always needs to be every conversation needs to be about feedback. That's not what I'm meaning. But in a professional context, if somebody says to you, "Okay, I give," is this fine for you to give you feedback? And you say yes, then just to receive it, don't defend yourself. Listen first, yeah, maybe, and then think about this, what you've just heard. I think this is a very smart way also for team leaders and leaders or managing directors to also detect some blind spots. Yeah. So maybe some certain areas of my personality I'm not really aware of. And then ask yourself, okay, maybe how I can get better and how I can learn and grow and challenge myself. So in the end, if you want to give feedback to somebody, I think one of the most important things is that you are credible as feedback provider in the eyes of the feedback recipient. Yes. So what credible means, that person also values your opinion and your personality. So, and I think this is something we also know from our own personal experience. We are not willing to get feedback from somebody we have strong negative emotions about, for example. Yeah. Or somebody where we say, okay, this is an idiot, or really somebody who's not my type of person I like. Clear, yes. I think so. This credibility is an important factor. Attached to this is also that the feedback provider is trusted by the feedback recipient. So there needs to be some kind of trust level between. So somebody you meet in a shopping street, and that person says to you, okay, I want to give you feedback. You will say, okay, no, why? I mean, it doesn't make sense. This is because there's a lack of trust and you don't know that person. This is not credible in your eyes. Important thing is, especially when you yourself are giving feedback, is that you do feedback with a good intention. This is something, especially in employee settings, when you talk as a team leader to a team member, for example, that's something often is not going very well, because the person that gives feedback, this is often the team leader, doesn't do it with good intentions, but with really naming just negative things about that person. Yeah. So I give you an example how it should be. If an employee, for example, has not done a good job because a task has not been fulfilled as agreed, and the timeline has not been met, and I'm talking to that person. There are two ways to do this. I can say, okay, I'm really angry, and why did you do this? And we needed this. You let your team down, and so really give that person a negative feeling. This is the one thing. This is not a good intention, because in the end, I'm just expressing my own feelings, and it doesn't help that person 0%. Yeah. The other way to do it would be, okay, we have an agreed target. Unfortunately, we have not met this together, but let's talk about the reasons and why, and how can I help you the next time to meet that target. And this is a totally different way. It's my intention here then is a good intention, because I want to help that person as a team leader to achieve the goals the next time. This time it has not worked. Yes. Okay, fine. But next time we want to ensure that this task is met, and I'm also offering help. Yeah, this is a different way to do it. Really, just being angry and saying, or being some kind of constructive and saying, okay, I really offer you also help to achieve your goals. Timing is also important if you want to give feedback. My experience is that you need to really give a good space for feedback. If you talk to an employee, for example, it's not good to do this in a team room where others are there. Yeah. Say, okay, I want to talk to you. Let's go to my office. Then you're one-on-one. And so it's also about creating the right atmosphere and circumstances to give good feedback. You need to do it in an interactive manner. It's not just I'm talking for 5 minutes. The other person also needs to have the chance to ask questions. What do you mean? So it needs to be really a discussion and not just a monologue. Yeah. So it's a dialogue and not a monologue, even feedback. But the feedback message needs to be clear. So, and to have that message clear, you need to prepare that. Yeah. Think about the points that you want to send. Make maybe a list in a notebook. and then give this message as clear as possible. And the feedback needs to be constructive and helpful for the recipient. Yes, as I talked before, it always needs to imply some kind of what can I do better and where can I help you? And so it's not just about naming the thing that has not been good, but it also needs to be the perspective, how can that person get better in the next time? Yes. So, and summing that up, how to provide good and meaningful feedback. Before you give the feedback, choose the right time and place. Talked about this. Prepare your points. So if you are in a leadership setting, I think it's very important to write down what you want to say. Then you have some kind of agenda and really check your intent. Yeah, challenge yourself. Why do you want to give the feedback to that person? Is it really with a good intention, or is it just about letting go your own negative emotions about that person? This doesn't help at all, really. It's not in the end, it will hurt your personal relationship with that person, and it will even make the effectiveness and productivity of that person even worse. So challenge yourself. Why do you want to lead that feedback conversation? Do you have a really genuine desire to help the other person to improve, or what is your intention? Yeah. So get that clear. If you are in the feedback, then really start positively. This is also what I'm doing normally. Name also the good things. Yeah. What is the person doing well? Offer praise. And if you then name the things or topics that can be improved, focus on the behavior. Describe your observations, what the actions are. Don't judge the character. It's not about the character. It's about what on an actional level has gone wrong or not so well. Be specific and clear. Provide examples. Really avoid vague arguments or comments where you don't have any clear evidence about. Yeah, things like I'm feeling that. No, it's not about feeling. It's about observation and specific points that you have observed in the past, but also offer actionable guidance. Yeah, clearly explain the why behind your feedback and suggest concrete steps for improvement. This is what I've told you just a few minutes ago about the example. Yeah, really also always provide concrete actions and steps for improvement. And invite for a dialogue. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's not about a monologue, it's about a dialogue. So the other person also needs to have the chance to ask questions, listen actively to what the person says, and always stay empathetic and kind. Yeah, kindness helps. Empathy doesn't mean that kindness allows you also to really talk about the tough topics. On the contrary, yeah, but it makes the conversation about these tough topics more rewarding for everybody. Yeah, and it's in the end, it's about the outcome and the result and to improve that. And it's not about the character of the person and not about how I judge that person. Yeah, and a lot of leaders and team leaders are doing this wrong. Yeah, because they are giving feedback more out of if it's about effective behavior. So I'm angry and now I need to talk to somebody. Yeah, it's not a good thing to do it like this. And after the feedback, really try to make sure that what you have discussed with the employee is also followed up. Yeah. If you have been talking about concrete measures, how to improve things, then you need to check later whether this has been fulfilled or not. Yeah. Also, stick to your commitments. If you have said, I offer you help and support, then do this. Yeah. This then will increase again, the trust relationship between you and the other person, and make it a habit. Yeah. For example, I'm talking to my employees in a feedback manner every month normally. Yeah. So we have some kind of jour fix. So I provide feedback regularly, but they also have the chance in that same meeting to provide me feedback. Yeah. To say, okay, what from their perspective can be improved in my leadership behavior. And this makes a lot of sense. And that is then the foundation to really create this kind of feedback culture I was talking about in the beginning. Good. Now there are a few minutes left for questions. I hope there are questions. I mean, I've talked about also a lot about some practical experience from my side. I think this communication and being sensitive for good communication and feedback is, I think, one of the crucial competences you need to have, especially when you are at a certain point of time becoming or getting into a leadership role. This year, what I've just presented to you is extremely important. And good leaders are able to modulate their communication style depending on whom they are talking to. Yes. And this, I think, is a very big strength. If you are able to do this, then you will see that on the one hand, the people are much more satisfied in their work. They are more satisfied with your team lead, with you as a team leader, and they will trust you. Yeah. And in the end, it's everywhere. It's about trust. Trust is the foundation for also effective communication and also effective organizations. Okay, but now I'm looking forward to your questions. Maybe we have some questions in the chat. Then I'm looking forward.
Sven, thank you for the informative training. And we have a few questions from the students. And first is, how do you react internally to criticism, even if you appear calm on the outside? What strategies do you use to avoid becoming defensive?
Can you repeat this? Sorry,
Okay. How do you react to criticism, even if you appear calm on the outside? What strategies do you use to avoid becoming defensive?
Yeah, but that's a very good thing. I think there are two things that are very important. If you receive really critical feedback about yourself or personality or about the competence, just stay in the moment and listen. And also ask questions. What do you mean concretely? Do you have any evidence on behavioral level where you observed this? So really try to understand what the point is that the other person wants to give you. And sometimes this leads to the effect that even a very broad topic is getting smaller and smaller. Maybe it's just one or two things that are criticized in your personality. But really listen first. Be so strong and able to listen and pose questions. Then as a second step, but I would not do this in the same meeting. Normally when I receive critical feedback, I say, okay, thank you for the feedback. I will think about this and I will come back to you. Yeah. But then in a second step, I'm thinking about, okay, what does it mean? Is it really a thing? Is it maybe a blind spot? Yeah, I've been talking about blind spot in my own personality or behavior I have not seen yet. Yeah, and how can I improve it? Maybe I can improve it. And then after a few days, I normally then go back to the person and say, okay, thanks, was helpful for me. I see this, or I don't see this at all. Sometimes it's always time, and then you have a few days time to prepare your answer. But often it's it's a valid point, yeah. Maybe it's a little bit exaggerated, but it's a valid point. And then I say, okay, I will try to improve myself and try to grow and learn. And the message that you're then sending out to the other person is, okay, I understood you, and I am also working on myself. Even if you are a team leader, even if you are a managing director, you always can learn, you always can grow. And I think that's the mindset. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get really stupid feedback where you say, okay, this is so much because somebody's really angry about you and it's just fake arguments. Yeah. Yeah. We also know this kind of, then I say, okay, that's a waste of time. I quit the meeting now. It doesn't make sense at all. But 95% of the feedback that you receive, even it's critical, contains some valid points. And it gives you the chance to improve. And I make this cut and say, thank you for the feedback. I will think about this. I make this cut because I don't want to get into this emotional response pattern. Yes. So I want to break through this a little bit. And that's my way how to deal it. And actually, this is also in line with what I've presented to you today with regard to active listening and then thinking and then talking about or thinking about behavior and actions.
Thank you. The next question is, which form of feedback is more comfortable? Written, for example, email, or verbal face-to-face meeting, and why?
I think a good combination is both. So what I normally do is I prepare a feedback meeting quite well. So I write down the different points or the messages I want to send out. And then I talk to that person first, and according to this scheme I've just shown you. And after the meeting, I normally also write an email, yes, with the points discussed, and especially how can we improve that and where I can support that person, so that it's clear. Okay, we have done this meeting, we've talked about the topics, but we've also talked about possible solutions for the future. Actually, this also helps you when you are a leader for the follow-up, yes, because you have that in a written sense. And then after 8 weeks, for example, you can look into the email again and say, okay, we've talked about this, we've talked about these actions. And then you can ask the person again, okay, what did you do? Did you implement that? Or where can I help you? So that's the way how I do it. And yeah, but speak first and then write.
Okay, and the last question is, what risks do you see in actively asking for feedback from teachers or colleagues, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This is, I think it depends on your relationship to the person. I mean, I was talking about this trust relationship that needs to be there if somebody, or if you recognize somebody as somebody who can give you feedback. Yes. The question is a little bit, if you want to get feedback from a teacher or a professor at university. Yes. Often, I mean, I'm also a lecturer, and I also give trainings and lectures at university. I mean, most of the students, I don't have such a close trust relationship. So the problem there is if this is not there, then the feedback is often too high level. Sometimes the risk is there that if you ask for feedback in such a setting, you get just more abstract feedback, something that is not really helping you. So I would ask myself, is there maybe somebody who knows me quite well, to whom I have a good relationship? Can be a teacher, can be a professor, but the likelihood is not so high. and then ask this person for feedback, because they know you better and they also know your strengths and weaknesses. But if you ask for feedback, ask for specific points. I mean, I would not ask somebody to give you a general feedback about my personality. This doesn't help. I would ask feedback for, what do you think? How are my project management skills? Yeah, I mean, we have done a project together the last 4 weeks. So what do you think? How can I improve? You can ask for feedback on some communication skills or whatever, because you have done a speech, and then you can ask someone, okay, how do you think? Was this? Where can I improve? Always ask for specific feedback and not this general, how am I as a person? This is not helpful at all. Doesn't make sense. And ask yourself, what are the right people? Whom do I trust? And from whom do I really accept feedback? I think that is important.
Thank you, Sven, for the training, for the workshop. It was very informative, and we were glad to see you at the career workshop. And thank you for joining us with the Horst Roghush Foundation. And have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And yeah,